The workers at the Indiana Grand will be doing a public action on March 12th at 3:30 p.m. up on the second floor mezzanine, right outside of the parking garage. So any and all community support, if you want to come there, be there, support the workers in their fight for better wages, seniority being respected in their scheduling, and also better health insurance. We'd love to see you there.
Taylor, can you just tell us a little bit of, maybe like some background in relation to what the struggles are for the workers there at that particular casino?
Sure. So I've worked there at the Indiana Grand for about 2 years. And over the course of those 2 years, I've heard stories from a lot of my coworkers, people who have worked there since what they called the tent days, before it was an actual casino they had built. So 11, 12 years, people still making, $11 to $12 an hour. Having worked there for 11 to 12 years, just in the short time that I've worked there, 2 years, our company has changed hands. Like our casino has changed hands about 3 times. Went from Centaur, which was a small gaming company, to Caesars Entertainment. Caesars was bought out by El Dorado. And every single time over the course of those 2 short years, I've seen the health insurance get progressively worse and worse and worse. My yearly deductible is about $3,700, and I pay monthly, a premium for that, for like health insurance that I can't really use. So those problems are indicative all across job titles at that casino. So people are struggling. So that's one of the biggest reasons why, we won our union election and our organizing fight. Obviously, we still have a lot more fight to do. We don't have a contract, and that we're gonna have to bring the company to the table for that. But because of the massive changes that we've seen every time the casino changes hands company-wise, people just want consistency. And a way to have consistency with your wages, your raises, your seniority, your benefits is to have it in contract. So whenever the casino gets bought out by another company, they're not just buying the casino, they're buying the union contract and the benefits. So it's protection for all of those things.
Sounds like a good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to ask also in relation to sort of what work or what life and work might have been like before Unite came along, and then what did the union bring to those workers there?
So, before it was kind of chaotic, right? The way that I would describe it to my coworkers is that, you have the company that is sowing kind of dysfunction, where everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Everyone's kind of just trying to get through the day, just coming in, working their shifts, trying to make money. I work in the front of the house. I'm a bartender. So it's you come in, you make your cash, you leave, you go home, you're exhausted. With a really concentrated organizing effort, it kind of takes all that dysfunction and points people in one direction. And it actually fosters more of a team based atmosphere. I know for me, since we've won our union, I've seen coworkers start standing up for themselves and for other coworkers, and there have been massive improvements to just the daily life of working in there. We just got tons of new glassware for behind the bar. We just got new bar stools so more people can sit at my bar, because our stools before were breaking. So that would be the biggest difference that I've seen. It's very I think indicative of the service sector and the working class. In the United States, it's a mixture of everyone. There are people who are 19-year-old high school graduates, all the way up to people who are 60-something years old and have worked here for over a decade and have grandchildren. It's that wide array, and they're all kind of coming together and trying to make the jobs better for different reasons, and that's what makes it so powerful. So just in terms of how busy the job is and the amount of business that's brought in. The start of like sports gambling as well as like table games has made the casino, in my opinion, way busier. Like there's way more guests coming in, especially in my little corner. I'm a bartender in the sports book, and we're like right outside of where all the new table games are. So that's created a much more like hectic environment. So we've studied like Eldorado properties across the country, and found that one of their biggest like corporate initiatives is to create what they call synergies, which is one of those like corporate buzzwords that you hear a lot. And essentially, what it means is that you cross train workers who typically do one job to do multiple jobs. So it's a way for them to undercut worker power and to exploit their labor even further. They're not being compensated for doing 2 or 3 jobs. They're just being expected to, and they're eliminating positions. So that's something that I think we've started to feel a little bit. So, and that also comes with what I said before, like, the wages aren't going up. And so, like, turnover rates are really high because it's an extremely busy work environment. So, there are some times, and it's not the fault of, like, any of my coworkers, but, like, sometimes, you have to jump in and, like, help out. Like, if we don't have a host in our restaurant, like, the servers or the bartenders will have to go up to the host's counter and seat people, or bus your own table if we're short staffed on bussers. But I think what's important is that from the highest levels of the company, that sort of behavior is encouraged, and that's something that we're trying to stop from happening.
What is sort of like starting wage for someone who gets a job maybe in the bar?
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to say no one gets hired in as a bartender. They told me when I first got my job there about 2 years ago, they were going to hire me as a bartender, and I ended up having to work in a different job classification for a year in order to move into the classification that they hired me at. So I had to serve tables for a year when they hired me as a bartender, which is fine. I mean, I get that, like, being a bartender is a better position, so, like, kind of have to work your way up a little bit. But I definitely think that, yeah, it's intentional. I don't think that any of my specific managers are doing it intentionally, but it's really difficult to hide the fact that this is very...
Like a bait and switch kind of thing?
Yeah, bait and switch. It's like, yeah, like, bring you... Like, they're so desperate for people to come in and work that they'll, like, say, hey, come in, we have this. And, like, when... My experience, you sit down at the interview table and they say, I know that we brought you in for this, but, like, really we have, like, X, Y, and Z that, like, we need you to do. So. And so far as, like, the starting wage, servers make $4 to $5 an hour, at least in my room that I work at. Bartenders make, like, $7 to $8. Bussers are making $8 an hour, $9 an hour, I think. Same as, like, the hosts. Cook jobs are around $11 an hour through the door. So that's like what the start is.
There's this national campaign that's coming up, and it's focused around a lot of contracts are being negotiated.
Oh yes.
So talk a little bit about that. Like what's going on there?
So the cool thing is, like, when you organize your union, a lot of times you feel, at least for me, I felt like a little isolated. Like, we're a casino out in the sticks, like, 30 minutes outside of Indianapolis in a cornfield, basically. There's 300 people in our union out there now that were part of the bargaining unit that got to vote. So we feel like a little alone. Like, how are 350 people really going to, like, leverage this massive, like, gaming company into, like, good jobs, good wages, good benefits, seniority? The fact of the matter is that, like, our union is good about, like, fostering that sort of solidarity. Like, we're not just in that fight on our own. we're actually like fighting alongside other casinos that work for the same company whose contracts are coming up. We're communicating with like Caesars Southern Indiana, which are negotiating their new contract right now, and they're just like 2 hours away from us. And we're also, in touch with like Atlantic City. All their contracts are being negotiated this year too. There's over like 10,000 Caesars workers that are negotiating their contract right now, and I think we realize that like the more we are together in pressuring the company, the more we will all get. Like 10,000 is just better than 350 when it comes to pressuring like a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
And what are the sort of like the points that in the contract that we're fighting for right now?
Yeah, so I think that right now we're doing bargaining surveys. So we've won our union, but we're asking our coworkers, what do you want to see in the contract? Because the fact of the matter is, like, people in Atlantic City can't tell us what we need in Shelbyville, Indiana. People in Las Vegas can't tell us what we need in Shelbyville, Indiana. So we're just going around and asking people what they want. So that question, the answer is different depending on who you talk to. I can only speak for like my corner of the casino, but right now we're talking about what's the best way to respect workers in like scheduling, for instance. And so it's our job as like union leaders to just ask that question, what people think, because our contract, we have full ownership of it, and we're not going to ask for anything that we don't all want. So like outside of the things like obviously we want more money, we want better health insurance. What does that look like? That depends on like how much power we're willing to bring to the bargaining table. But there's a lot of room for like other things, like how do we want to do seniority? How do we want to do scheduling? How do we want to do like gratuities on large parties, stuff like that.
What is the scheduling like now in terms of impact on people's lives?
Yeah, so like the scheduling now, I'm lucky enough I have like a set schedule, but then again I've been very, very upfront and like clear about like these are boundaries, like these are things that I cannot do. There are a lot of people who are more on call there and their schedule changes every week, and what I've heard is that like it's very difficult to like plan a life when you're not sure what hours or days you're going to be working. So I think what I've seen is like there's just like inconsistencies. So like having something in writing where like, no, this is how you deal with like the schedule, like will make it much more consistent for folks. We would appreciate any and all support. Like this is going to be a huge fight over the next several months. Our leverage is going to be ramping up against the biggest casino corporation in North America, or one of the biggest. If not the biggest, it's definitely in like the top two. This is a company that makes billions and billions and billions of dollars, and people who are the backbone of the casino, the people who clean the floors in the casino, the people who like make the food, the people who service like the machines. They're making poverty wages in Indianapolis. So I would say like whatever you can, like reach out to those people, reach out to the unions like Unite Here, or Teamsters, or like the operating engineers, and just say like, how can I be supportive of these workers? Because there's going to be many, many, many opportunities to come out and show support in a multitude of different ways between now and June, July, when the contracts are going to be expiring in Atlantic City, which is going to be like the tipping point of like this national campaign. I would say like here in Indiana, like reach out to Unite Here Local 23. I think that there's contact information on the website, or send like a Facebook message, something like that. We're going to be organizing community support around a multitude of actions in the future. One very, very soon. So if you're interested, I would say, reach out. We'd love to have you there.
Well, thank you, Taylor.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
And that's it. Solidarity.
Solidarity forever.